Hello and welcome back to the W Basketball Show. I am joined by, my name is Lucas and I'm joined by Agnes Emma-Nnopu. Agnes, how are you going today?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for asking. Welcome back to Australia. We were just talking about you moved around a lot during secondary school and you moved around a bit during college. But how are you feeling being back in Australia now?
It's been good. I've been enjoying it. Obviously, the weather's a little terrible right now, but other than that, like loving getting to see like my people and like kind of just re-immersing myself back in like Australian basketball. So yeah, it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, and you're playing with the Knox Raiders in the NBL one. Are
Yeah.
you living around there or are you living back at home?
Yes, I am living around there. I'm living up in like Baronia or down in I'm living in Baronia. Yeah.
Yeah. What's Baronia got to offer?
They've got, I don't know if you've seen, there was a bakery called Jerome Bakery that was like trending a little bit on TikTok. So they have
Oh,
like these
okay.
really cool pastries. So it definitely has that. And then, I just really do my Pilates and kind of just call it a day type of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you do Pilates?
I do Core Plus Mitchum.
People love Core Plus.
So good.
Are
It's
we
really
talking mat or reformer?
I do both. I do like I used to be very much like a mat girly, but I love reformer now. I think it's really
Mm,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I've found with Pilates, it's so dependent on the instructor.
Yes.
Like I've had two instructors at places that I've done it before leave, and that is honestly one of the biggest heartbreaks you'll ever experience in your life is when your
100%.
instructor moves to a different
Exactly.
studio.
Especially if you like them a lot, seriously.
Yeah. You've spoken before about the importance of academics in your of academia in your life. It's not, it's not all about basketball. But yeah, we've also spoken about how you've jumped around quite a lot. What have you found to be like the biggest challenges in finding consistent environments and like just a clear headspace to find academic success alongside basketball success?
Yeah, I would say it's probably just I guess balancing it all. I feel like I was fortunate enough to go to the AIS and that really helped with like learning how to like at a young age balance my academics and my sport. So I think that that really helped. Time management is something that I've been huge on. So I really make an effort to like kind of write down what I need to get done, especially schoolwork wise. Like throughout the week, make sure I don't miss any deadlines. And I feel like that was probably the most challenging thing just because like once you hit college there's just a lot more like assignments, a lot more things that you need to get done, a lot more readings that they have you doing. So I think being on top of my time management was something that I was able to progress while I was in college.
Yeah. So like what would a typical day be in college? Let's say you don't have a game.
Yeah. So I would say like an undergrad day was very different to a like master's class. Once I hit like TCU and I was doing my master's program, I went to class twice a week. I did not have a lot of classes. So
Right.
it was very, very relaxed. But I was working on a thesis. So like I had to put in like my own individual hours. But like with undergrad at Stanford, we either had the early block, which was 12:15 to 3:15, or we had the later block, which was 3:15 to 6:15. So all classes were like clustered like kind of around then. So if it was a 12:15 to 3:15 block, I had like three classes in the morning, kind of back to back to back. They're both an hour and 20. Then they were really big on these things called sections. So we had huge lecture halls. Then they broke us into like small groups of like maybe 8 people, where you got
Mhm.
to go with a TA, teaching assistant, and kind of just go over the work. So then that would be like another like 2 hours in the evening. And then on top of that,
Okay.
like just finding time to like fit in study and like homework time. So
Yeah.
it was quite time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what's the commitment to the basketball team like?
Yeah. So it would be obviously we have our team practices and weights. So when you're in season, you have those 20-hour basketball weeks, and that doesn't include weights. So the coaches can have you on court for 20 hours. So at TCU, we never really exceeded that time. We would go maybe an hour and a half practices, and that was pretty much 6 days a week.
Mhm.
We would do weights, and that was 4 or 5 times a week. And then on top of that, like they did expect like you to come in and like put in your own work. So for me personally, a regular day with class and with basketball at TCU was practice. So weights in the morning, like 9 to 10, or sorry, 8 to 9, and then we had practice maybe 10, um, wait, no, 9:30 to like 11, and then I like to stay a little bit and shoot. Then I do my treatment, get something to eat, head home, have a bit of a nap, and then my class starts at 4. And then after class, I would come back in and shoot in the evening for like an hour or something like that.
Far out. So you're talking like a 9 to 9 day.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, yeah.
As busy as that is, does it like, was the structure kind of, was it fun at all?
It was 100%. I feel
Yeah.
like that is one of the biggest challenges I'm finding right now. I just feel like I have so much spare time.
Mm,
And obviously, like like a lot of the hours that I was talking about just then like with basketball at college were like, I was coming in and doing extra shooting or doing my treatment. But here it feels like no matter how long I'm in the gym for, or how many workouts I have, I still have like, like 8 hours of my day to fill.
yeah.
So
Yeah. You're just ready to go at all
exactly.
times.
Exactly.
Would you say that your body's like probably feeling pretty good though?
Yeah, I would definitely say that
Yeah.
100%. I really like have been enjoying like I go to Pilates pretty much every day.
Oh, nice.
Maybe reformer, maybe mat, maybe just like a kind of they call it warm yin yoga. So just something like that. So it's nice to like move and kind of like take this as obviously still getting to play basketball, but take it kind of as an off season. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Have you found any value in that? Having been in, five college seasons in a row,
Yeah.
sounding pretty like most of your year is kind of gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
are you finding some value in having that time away or having less responsibility?
100%. I think especially as like female athletes, like, and I've seen it in a couple of my friends. I feel like when you just go back to back to back, that's when like injuries like ACL tears and things like that occur. And I'm like, I love moving and it's always great to be in basketball shape and doing like 100 things every single day. But it's nice to kind of just have that like mental and physical reset. So I am enjoying it and I'm finding a lot of value in it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Before we look forward to your time with the Flames, congratulations, by the way. That's going to be, I mean, I don't know. I've had this soft spot for Sydney the last few years, and next season I feel like I'm going to still have that soft spot for Sydney. But just to go back to the start of your college career,
Mhm.
you entered Stanford with someone by the name of Cameron Brink, and
Yes.
Lexi Hull, Haley Jones, Kiana Williams were already there. Your
Yeah.
second season, Kiki Iriafen comes into the fold. Um, what's it like going from being in Australia or yeah, the AIS into an environment where you have these just like such high profile people?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that experience like being with them? And then yeah, what did you learn in your first 3 seasons with Stanford?
I would say they're very like obviously they're big figures like in the media and like basketball, but they're very like down to earth people, and obviously like they're people who I consider really close friends to this
Mm,
day. I would say just like taking from them, especially when coming in as a freshman and seeing the likes of Lexi, Haley, and Kiana, they were people who kind of took me under their wing and like just sort of showed me the ropes of college basketball and just like, you know, obviously basketball is a international language, but I feel like there are different, it translates differently
mm,
across like, Australia versus, playing in the US and things like that. So they were very helpful with that. And they're just overall great people. And like, I love seeing them succeeding right now. And like the
mm.
WNBA is something that I have as a goal. So being able to like kind of pick their brains and like chat about it and the experiences with them is something that truly can't, value anymore. Yeah.
Mm. And then how was your like basketball progression in those first 3 seasons?
Yeah.
For you yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously coming out of Australia was very highly recruited. So it was sort of like a little bit of a shock, like, and big adjustments coming in. And like, like you're a freshman, you're an international freshman, you didn't really get your summer. So it's like coming in and kind of learning the ropes and being like, I guess not being able to like really play, but making an impact, like, in practices and like trying to just get as much knowledge and information as you can during those practices without stepping on the court. So I think that was the biggest adjustment for me. But um, like Tara is like one of the best coaches in the world, and being able to like kind of just absorb all her knowledge, and they were very detail oriented at Stanford, and I think that's something that's really helped me in my progression with my own game. So I think that I wouldn't have changed the experience at all. Yeah.
How good, man.
Yeah.
Would you say, yeah, you thrived in like a detail-oriented environment?
I would say for sure, 100%. I feel like I can see it in like the way that I pass in games and things like that. I feel like it's very much like, especially as someone who I guess is now considered kind of a shooter, like going into college, I didn't realize the importance of like, someone passing you the ball with the seams up, but it's like something
Mm,
I'm getting a pass to somebody else. I want to make sure that, they're able to catch it, don't have to do too much adjusting. And it's those are the little things that we really worked on.
yeah, true. So how would you say, what would you say your player build was like going to Stanford?
I would say very athletic, like just kind of like a hard worker. Growing up, I was like a little bit taller than a lot of people, so they had me kind of pushed into that post position.
Mm,
Whereas like, you know, going into college and like getting older, like everyone's kind of a little bit, everyone's tall, so it's not like I'm a post anymore. So developing the guard skills was a huge part, and I think for me, like a lot of the growth you see in college has to do with you coming into the gym and like putting in your own work. And I feel like I did that with my shot. I wasn't really a 3-point shooter before I left for college, but I think that's something that's like a huge part of my game now. And then just continuing to build on like things that I did do before, which was defense and like rebounding.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then now you're transferring over to TCU. What's the process of transferring like?
Yeah, I think it would. So it's very different depending on if you're graduating or if you're not. If you're an undergrad. So I'll speak on the graduate transfer. So I had to make sure I graduate. You need 180 units to graduate from Stanford, and I graduated on the dot with 180. So I hadn't actually like pre-planned it until honestly the start of my like third year.
Mm,
So I was like, okay, like we'll see what happens this season, like opportunity, all that kind of stuff, and just see if like this is where I want to do my 5 years. And so I just wanted to give myself the option to, if I end up wanting to stay, then I can do my master's there. I can go to a different school. So basically, once I graduated, it was honestly you could take as many visits as you wanted. The
mm,
coaches reached out. You obviously had to like notify, like I let my coaches know at Stanford that this is what I'm choosing to do, and they were pretty cool with it. They also weren't like there wasn't any animosity. I was able to use the gym, able to work
mm,
out, but it was just very much like, especially my last quarter at Stanford, I was making sure I was graduating as well, and like trying to spend as much time with my friends that I was going to be leaving,
mm.
whilst also navigating like having a phone call or three every day with the college
Yeah.
coach. Yeah, so it was very stressful, but I was able to, yeah, it was very enjoyable though. Still, yeah.
Yeah. How many teams would you say you or colleges did you speak with in that transfer period?
I would say over at least 30. I was really
Oh my
trying
God.
to,
I wasn't expecting that number.
yeah, because I had some like mentors who were like kind of helping me with the process. And like obviously coming in as a freshman, it's like you have like 100 different categories you want to tick off as like, this is my dream school. I was like education, location, all of
Mm,
that. I think for me as a transfer, it's like you really have to look at like what's the reason behind me wanting to transfer. And I'm like, I'm just looking for somewhere where I can like be the versatile player that I came to
mm,
college. So I was like, I'm gonna speak to everybody and like not be biased, like
mm,
Power 5, not Power 5 in a state that I wouldn't necessarily have thought I would have lived in, states that I'd never heard of before, and just really hearing out what the coaches like had envisioned for me coming into that program. So yeah.
mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels like you really found a home with TCU. But
Yeah.
were there any schools in that transfer period that got like pretty close?
Yeah, I took two visits at the end in the end, like with the transferring. I went to TCU and I went to Gonzaga. I really enjoyed them. And U Miami was another school that
Mhm.
I really enjoyed talking to and thought that could have been a good fit. But
Yeah,
yeah.
true. And then what got you over the edge with TCU?
I think it was just definitely Mark Campbell. I feel like for me, like he spoke about his story and how he had been at programs where they weren't, like they hadn't been expected to go how far they had.
Mm,
And he just had like a vision, and I'd seen it. Like he had told me, and I actually did my own research how he had done it at different programs, and it just really spoke volumes. I'm like, I want to be part of like history. Yeah.
mhm. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a good motivator. All right, so now you're at TCU.
Yeah.
You had such a good season, like you definitely made a great decision. You're the only player on the team to start all 33 games, averaged over a steal and over a block, led the team in offensive rebounds, shot 37% from three on, much higher volume than you had been on in Stanford. What went into you having such a productive season?
Yeah, it was just the coaches pouring into me. I think the whole, like my whole 2 years, it was always like, like you have the ultimate green light, like you put in the work outside of like what people see, and I want you to like, just be confident. So they kept pouring into me, and it was always like, like we know what you can do, and like we want you to go out there and just feel like you're not looking over your shoulder if you make a mistake.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, nice. And then just trusting in the work that you'd done.
100%. Yeah.
Um, in that first season with TCU, I don't know if you can recall all the games you played, but you had one game early against Army where you had three steals and four blocks, and then later in the season you had a game against West Virginia where you had four steals and six blocks. Um, what goes into like I can kind of understand when a player talks about having a hot offensive night or
Mhm.
like when they can get going from three. Because so much of the defensive end is predicated on like knowing your assignment and defending within the team structure. But what goes into like having such a productive defensive game?
Mhm. Ooh, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Um, I would definitely say like you said, knowing the scout, I feel like for me, defense has always been something that I've kind of like hung my hat on. And like I think that game I happen to have had a okay offensive game as well. But I think that like game in and game out, like it might not show up in like the like the stat sheets or anything like that, but like I feel like I'm deflections is something that I strive
Hmm.
to get, like like walling up and like making the shots tough. It just happened that in that game like the deflections was steals and the walling up ended up being blocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Um, when you're in one of those games as well, is there like a mental switch that you see in your opposition where you kind of know they're worried about you making another steal or another block?
Mm, I think a little bit. I feel like more so the block, you can kind of see when they're hesitant to shoot it. And it's
Mm,
like, okay, like I know, like we've watched scout on you, and like that's a shot that you normally would take. So it's
mm,
like, like you can start to see that they're a little bit like they're hesitating in things that they're naturally like do like well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say the satisfaction would come more from a player not taking a shot that they would usually feel comfortable shooting?
Yes, definitely. I think that's something that like we as a team and like a lot of teams I'm in, it's like we can live with somebody like, like say it's a driver, they drive left all the time. We can live with them shooting a contested three, but like I'm gonna take away what they want to do. So
Mm.
mhm.
Yeah, true. And then this most previous season you had with TCU, Haley Van Lith transferred over, and Sedona Prince is already there.
Yeah,
Did you notice? You've already spoken about like the media, the media responsibilities for players that you played with in Stanford,
yeah,
and then how that affects the team. But
yeah.
did you notice a difference having been in that and then having another? Like super high profile player come, did you notice a shift in the media coverage?
I would say yes, but I feel like it had a lot to do with just like obviously like the first couple years, women's basketball was still like kind of more so growing and getting the coverage
Mm,
that it deserved. I feel like this last year, especially with like the LSU Iowa national championship
mm.
game a couple years ago, I think that boosted the attention that women's basketball is getting. So I feel like that played a part in, like a lot more people, like our team having a lot more eyes on us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, you'd played in two colleges that, pretty big colleges, great competitions. And of course March Madness.
Yeah.
What's that like, man? Like what's it like to play in March Madness, to be on the court?
Oh my God. It's like seriously like a experience I can't truly describe. It's just like, like you're playing against the best of the best and like in an atmosphere in something that you watched growing up and like heard about
Mm.
growing up and just being able to be out there. And like I was pretty lucky, like my parents got to fly out, especially my last year, and they were
Oh,
there
that's so
the other
nice.
day. So it's just awesome, like, like we had like the student section flew out to Alabama and they were there cheering
No
us on. So
way.
exactly, yeah. So there's like a sea of purple and just like, like hearing the announcers, seeing like the markings of like March Madness and like just being like with people that I enjoyed wanting to do that with. It was just, yeah, truly an experience.
Yeah. Was it did you feel like were you staying in the moment, do you feel, or did you feel like sometimes you would like slip away and be like, okay, this is really cool?
I feel like I definitely was staying in the moment. I think especially my like the last year that just happened. I think that I found myself slipping away in the like I'm like, oh, Tampa is so close, like Final Four is so close, like
Mm,
but like trying to still remain like with one game like mentality.
mm,
But it was like when you like look up in the stands and you see, especially like after like doing something cool and like you're hearing the crowd erupt, it's like, wow, like this is seriously like a dream.
mm. Did anyone prepare you for March Madness, or even if they did try to prepare you, do
Yeah.
you feel like you were prepared before you'd started your first ever March Madness?
Ah, I would say, yeah, I think like not necessarily anyone in particular. I feel like just like experiences. Like I was lucky enough to be on the U19 Worlds team where we played USA in Thailand and like the arena was full. So it was like that kind of atmosphere, but like it was like different countries cheering for like all kinds of teams. I feel like when March Madness was so different that like, you really had like you had the band playing, you had like your sea of purple, we had the sea of orange. It was like I like nothing could have prepared me for how cool of an experience that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that U19 team. So your class of Aussie basketballers,
Mhm.
including yourself, is like, what are they going to look like in 10 years,
I
But
know.
like really great class. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia and Moore just got drafted, Jade Melbourne, uh uh Shyla Heal.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure I'm forgetting a few names, but what's it like? Does it feel like that's coming up against them every day?
Mhm.
you know, there's no days off
Yeah.
practicing against them.
Yeah.
How does that, just being around that environment, as a kid, like as you're still a kid playing against players like that, how
Yeah.
does that prepare you for, stuff later in life, like the NBL one now and yeah, college and just all your basketball?
Yeah, I think it prepares a lot. I feel like obviously like the I'm big on the saying like iron sharpens iron, and so getting to go
Mm,
up against players like that day in day out, and like having the being able to live at the AIS and play against like what was considered the best players in Australia at that time. I just feel like that really was kind of like the launching pad for me being able to like go to a school like Stanford and like I guess have a pretty successful college career.
mm. I'd say a pretty successful college career.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also I can't believe I didn't mention this, but probably should have started with this on the college career. You won an NCAA championship in your first season. Um, what was it like to be a part of that team? Did it feel like, oh, this is going to happen every year because it happened in my first season?
Yes, okay. On that part, I think yes. I feel like we started off like as a freshman, we started off like on such a high. When we lost in the final four the next year, it was just like wow, like I don't think it was more heartbreaking than like it would have felt if we hadn't had won the last year, just because we
Mm,
knew like we were probably the team that were meant to be there. But I don't know. I feel like my freshman year, I don't know if you know too much about the story. Stanford was in the red zone in terms of COVID. So they kicked us all off campus. And so we were living we were living in a hotel for like 9 or so weeks.
mm,
So that kind of prepared us for like the bubble that would happen in San Antonio when we went to the NCAA tournament. But just like, they had a parade for us after we won. Like when that buzzer finished and we all ran onto the court, it was like actually insane. I was like, I think everyone was subbing. It was like seriously the coolest experience. Yeah.
Would you say that's your that's like the number one memory you have from your young basketball career so far?
I would say yes, but I would also say that us winning the Big 12 championship tournament this last my last college year,
Yeah.
that one was just like out of this world. I know it wasn't an NCAA championship, but it truly just meant a lot to be able to do it with like a group of like I think everybody on the court that like every I think of that team, there was three people who weren't transfers. So having
Mm.
something and become so close
Yeah,
and
true.
yeah, you know, girls who would experience so many different sides of college. Yeah, that was definitely number one, I would say.
Yeah, awesome.
Mhm.
It did like knowing that it was going to be your last season playing in college. Do you reckon that played a part in it as well?
Yes, definitely. And it wasn't just, I think there was like seven of us whose last year it
Mm,
was. So like for us, it was like we didn't want it to end. We just loved like being around each other so much that like even when we lost to Texas, like it sucked that we had lost. But the saddest part was like we weren't gonna see each other day in, day out.
mm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh man, how do you like you start your college career with the championship, you end your college career with the championship? How do you feel like in that process? I don't even know how to ask this question, but like, how do you feel like you've grown and matured, or like, can you even answer that?
um, yeah, I feel like it's hot. I know what you mean. Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's tough because I feel like it was, I think for me, just like personal growth, I think resilience was a huge part of my college career. I think it had a lot of ups and downs. And like maybe people looking in from the outside would have thought like she's not going to do the whole 5 years, she's going to come back. But I think, and I put it in one of my Instagram captions when we won the Big 12 championship last year. I was like, it really was a full circle kind of
Mm.
season, my last year. It just felt like what had happened freshman year, like this, it felt like we were kind of like not recreating it, but it was like a kind of blossomed version of that.
The NBA moves so quickly these days, it's hard to keep up. Shams and Woj are breaking stories left and right, but the Quick Time Out is right there with them to keep you informed on the latest NBA news. Stop in and let us break it down as it happens. Find the Quick Time Out on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
And we're back. And Agnes, you are currently, as we said at the top, playing with the Knox Raiders in the NBL one. And we spoke about like the value of uh having kind of an off season. But yeah, you're there with Keely's twin sister Alicia and former Flame in Paige Bradley. Are there any gems you've picked up playing with a twin, or yeah, someone that was recently in the Flames program with Guy Malloy?
Mm, no, I feel like both Paige and Alicia, they both play hard. And I feel like that's something that Guy kind of emphasized and like that he liked in my game. And then also something that he wants the like, you know, people he recruits for the Flames to play. I think they're both really like hard workers and competitors. And it's like, you know, like that's how I want to play and like being able to like learn and you know, be a sponge on these older players. It's especially older players who have actually like experienced playing with Guy and like know what his coaching style is. It's yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Were you following much of the WNBL while you were in the States?
I was following a little bit. I'm very like I love basketball playing it. I watch occasionally. I like to watch when people I know are playing,
Mm.
but I wouldn't say that I consume like basketball regularly.
Yeah, true. Do you feel like you kind of need to get away from it, like just to keep yourself sane?
100%. Yes. Yes. I feel like me finding little hobbies has been kind of like what's keeping me sane. Cause, like, obviously, when you're in college, it's like you're a student, then you're an athlete.
Mm.
So it's like, although we're kind of wrapped up in it, like, I had a lot of different avenues and a lot of different things to like focus on. I think coming back here and being like a professional athlete, it's like basketball, 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 basketball. So
Mm.
I think me being able to like, you know, like do the Pilates that I was talking
Mm.
about and like you know, see family and friends, I think that allows me to kind of step away from it.
Yeah. What do you feel like in I've spoken with Guy a few times for a few different things,
Yes.
and I feel like something he's talked about a lot in this off season
Yeah.
is like as much talent as the Flames have recruited in this off season. He's always talking about high character people, hard workers. It's about assembling that sort of group. Um, have you? Has the group met in any capacity? Have you had like a Zoom call? Have you talked to individual players or anything?
Not as a whole group, but obviously, so with the NBL one, we played against like we played Keely. Um, Me and Shanice actually work out together
Oh, nice.
regularly, and then Emma Clark and I go to the same gym.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've, like interacted with them, like you know, and like I had connections with both of them before I went to college, and it was kind of nice just to like rekindle that.
Yeah, nice. Um, yeah, and so yeah, so now you're making your way to Sydney.
Mhm.
after all that jumping around,
Yes.
you've signed a three. Let me double check with you. You've
Yes.
signed a 3-year contract.
Yes. Yes.
What was it like? Yeah, to sign like a longer term contract. After so much movement.
Yeah. It was, I feel like initially it was kind of nerve-wracking. I was like,
Mm,
oh, I've always been someone, who like valued like traveling and moving around. But I'm like, like college was like a 3 and a 2 year experience. And I really enjoyed like, kind of having that community that I felt like I became part of. So I think it's very exciting to kind of come back to Australia and like, we don't know what happens in like the off season, like maybe NBL one, hopefully WNBA, but having that
mm.
kind of like security and like knowing like, there's a community who is going to get to know me across the years and I'm going to get to know them and become part of it. I think that's really exciting and something that I like truly like appreciated while I was in college.
Mm.
Yeah,
Would you say you're a big goal setter?
100%. Yes.
So yeah, so how does like a 3-year contract help with that kind of setting short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, I took actually like sports psychology and like we focused on like goal setting
Mm,
like one of my classes. So for me, it's like I'm very big on like process over outcome. So like the me and Guy have chatted about it, and he asked me like the goals that I have for myself, and obviously putting on the green and gold and representing Australia at an Olympic Games is a huge goal as well. So just kind of like breaking, like for me, it's like day in, day out, like what am I doing to achieve these goals? And that's like being on the court, prioritizing like physical and mental health, and like just slowly like doing something every day consistently is going to help me get to where I want to get to.
for sure. I feel like that process over outcome thing has been a theme a lot lately that I've heard from journalists, media people, coaches, former players, trainers, stuff like that.
Yes.
Um, what, in terms of process over outcome, how do you, how do you like value someone who's teaching you process over outcome? Like, do they have to, how, I don't know how to word this either, but like, do they obviously have to be like a credible source.
Yes.
Um, but I find it so interesting because if it's process over outcome, then
Yes.
surely the outcome of who they are shouldn't matter, you know?
I get what you mean. Yes. Yes.
So
Um,
how does like finding people to trust in that process over outcome sort of headspace? What goes into that?
yeah. I think for me, a lot of my like, I guess, like findings with the process over outcome is like personal experience. I feel
Okay.
like it was kind of drilled into me, like especially at TCU, like especially with like the shooting. Like at Stanford, I didn't shoot the ball a whole bunch or anything like that. Once I got to TCU and like we shot like I don't know, like maybe about hour and a half practice, we shot maybe like 45 minutes of it. Like we would shoot, 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 shoot. And like we started and tracked all the numbers. And like I think like Coach Mark was saying that I'm shooting like 76% in all these drills. So if I stepped into the game and it's like, okay, say I went 1 from 10, he's like, I'm not worried about what that percentage looks like. It's what you're doing. And I know that
Mm,
like the numbers will even themselves out because the process that you're taking will kind of end up reflecting like in the outcome later on. Like it's like, he was very big on like, like shoot a shoot type of thing. And I
mm,
think that was like a personal experience with that process over outcome where, like what am I doing? Like, am I catching is the shot the exact same each and every time? And if it goes in, it goes in. If not, I know that I did like A, B, and C, like the
mm,
steps leading up to what it was.
true. So
So,
how does that help you like that helps you individually, but how does that help you as a teammate understanding your teammates prioritizing process over outcome as well, and then like just living with, let's say you have the worst ever team shooting night and you guys goes 10 of 70. How does that help you kind of sift through that?
yeah. I would say that like because we've had games like that at TC where that
Mm,
happened. I think it's like very much, like that's not gonna happen like back to back.
mm,
I think having that in our head was helpful in the fact that like, like they weren't telling people to stop shooting because they know like the work that you put in behind the scenes. I'd also say like as a team, like valuing the process, like that's how you're gonna grow. If you're so focused on like, if we only focused on like, like we won at the end of the day, we wouldn't have got better as a team like throughout the season, because it's like we would have been like, okay, one, put that game to the side, but like we didn't look at like, like did we even guard them well, or was it just we would just happen to like out, we were just like more talented than them? Did we play as hard or anything like that? Like I feel like when you look at just like the score at the end of the game, it's really easy to miss like, like
Mm.
things that you could have improved on and like help you towards, the goals that you want.
Yeah, you miss out on the process.
Exactly.
You might say.
Yeah.
WNBL's new CBA. I had this at the start, and I keep going back to it. Did it play any role in you, or what role did it play, if it did, in you making the decision to come to the WNBL post college?
I didn't know a lot about it until like I had already signed. So I would say it didn't make a huge difference. I think for me, like coming to the WNBL was, the decision was made because like I've been in the college system for a while, and I think with the goals that I have to like play within Australian basketball for like at an Olympic Games, I was like I need to kind of re immerse myself back into like the Australian way of basketball.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's the new ownership in the WNBL, got that TCU purple as part of its branding. What's it like, yeah, to be part of the WNBL right now? Because I feel like it's a really exciting time as a media member and as a fan. What's it like as a player?
Yeah, 100. I feel like it's very exciting. I feel like everybody who I've chatted to, like, and who has brought up CBA has just said, like, this is, like you're coming into the league at like an incredible time. Like,
Mm.
there's so much more opportunity. There's a lot more, like just a lot more like attention coming to the WNBL, and a lot more like people like wanting to invest and like want to see women's basketball in Australia grow. So I'm just excited to be part of it. Seriously.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm also excited to like see what it's going to become, and also kind of not that I'm the tiniest grain of sand, but like to be part of it as a media member, it's like it's really been earned. I think that's something that I've noticed, is that like this isn't, there's nothing about this is accidental.
Yes.
The WNBL has been a great product since forever. The Opals are ranked second in international basketball. You don't do that with no domestic product. You do that with a
Exactly.
very, 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 very good domestic product.
Yes.
So yeah, it's well deserved, and yeah, I mean, and also great timing for you.
Yeah. Great timing. Seriously.
Um, what are you looking forward to in moving to Sydney and like, yeah, getting settled into a new team?
Yeah, I would say just like getting to kind of know a new group of people. And I've had like, experiences with Guy. I was like a DP before I went off to college for the Melbourne Boomers. So I got to
Mm,
work out a little bit with him. And I just know like, like a lot of the girls who I've chatted to, they said like Guy is a coach who pushes you to like reach your full potential. And I'm just, excited to kind of work under him and like play with the likes of like Shanice and like Loz Nicholson. So it's just,
mm.
yeah, I'm very excited. And
Yeah,
also
for sure.
Sydney is like, I've been there a couple of times, but I'm excited to, like kind of just experience like Sydney, the city.
Yeah. Um, yeah, how do you feel like your fit will be with the way I think you guys have 7 players right now, but how do you
Yeah.
feel like you fit just with the current roster at this point?
Yeah, I think pretty well. I feel like I'm a player who can kind of like adapt to any kind of situation. I think that's one of my gifts within basketball, being able to like kind of be like that glue person who can, like if you need me to score, I can score. If you need me to play defense and rebound, like I got you like that. So I feel like, just coming in there with like the mindset that I'm just going to be like the best teammate, and the best version of me is what I'm, yeah, coming to Sydney with.
Yeah, awesome. And just before I let you go, are there any matchups you're circling or looking forward to in the upcoming season?
Uh, Certainly, I would say Geelong, like our first game actually, like versus Geelong at Geelong. It'll just be nice to, like I feel like I'll have a lot of like friends and family coming out to that game, and like that's where I grew up and like did school and everything. So it's just gonna be cool to come back and like, obviously that was a club that I, held close to my heart. So it's just cool to, go back there and play there.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Agnes, thank you so much for joining me today. That was such a fun chat. Good luck with the rest of your NBL one season. You
Thanks.
got 3 and a bit months until WNBL tips off.
Yeah.
Oh, when do you head to Sydney, actually?
I've heard roughly like September.
Okay.
Yes, like
Okay,
early
cool.
September. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with it all. Lovely to chat to you.
Awesome.
And yeah, I go Flames.
Go Flames. Thank you.